could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Yeah, and times are changing everywhere. Do we dream and do we dare? It's up to you, the door is open wide. Feel the rhythm of today, learn the part and join the play. The world is here, let's take it for a ride. Hey, you could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted, shoot the moon and reach for Mars. You know you could. Larger, larger than, bigger, bigger than, living hopes and dreams. Every boy and girl, higher, higher than, brighter, brighter than, all you wanted. You know, hey, you could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can have all you ever wanted. Hopes and dreams, every boy. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You could have all you ever wanted. You know you could.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel Grand Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Armenia, Colombia. And I'm actually drinking some coffee. It's I guess you'd say it's a latte with a touch of chocolate in it. Okay, so where are we? Got lots of comments. About half of our normal people have started in. It's Easter. Happy Easter. If that's your thing. If you live here, it's your thing. Yesterday was this massive procession all around town, and pretty much every city in Colombia had that sort of thing. Turtle sent me a picture of them marching up his hill, which he told me people come from all over Colombia to go there for a particular reason. I didn't dig into it. I got a lot going on. It would have been interesting, but I didn't go any farther than that. As for me, I've been busy accomplishing not much this week. And very frustrating because the banks are closed pretty much every day and they're not open until Tuesday. All week was just kind of a wash. Everything that I did was pretty much long distance, a little frustrating. Chasing after about a $500 charge on a credit card. Apparently when I went to rent that car, I got it on points. But they always do a security thing and they do an imprint of your card. I never gave much thought to it. Probably should have, because shortly after I left there, I got a message from the bank telling me, "We suspect a fraudulent charge. Did you charge such and such for an airline ticket?" And I said, "No." And it was automated, but the automated response back was, "Okay, we will cancel your card, send you a new one, and we will not approve that payment." Okay, that's no problem. It's a card I rarely use anyway. So I get back from my Cali trip and I check in the bank, that charge showed up a couple days later. But what the hell? So I tried to get a hold of the bank, and the holidays had kicked in, and so that thing's still sitting on there. It's 1,700,000 pesos to Satena, which is a airline ticket thing. But I can't wait till Tuesday to kind of get that sorted out. It's unnerving. I don't have that kind of money to waste. I did get the card right away. Okay, today we're going to update cost of living. We'll do a little detail. We'll talk about a couple different people that sent me some information. And then I'll do kind of an overall summary. Before that, I got, I think, 7 news headlines. And of course, before that, we'll go over the chat here. Okay, first of all, Juka, he sent his typical contribution, but he sent it with a message. Today, busy with grandchildren all day till next Sunday. So apparently he's not watching today. Rob, good morning from Fort Lauderdale. 404 days. Well, at least next week you're going to be under 400. It'll be 300 something. It'll feel more like a fat year. So I mean, it's something, right? And let's see. Grand Colombia sent you 4 cups of coffee. Turtle, good morning. How you doing? He sent me his cost of living, which is kind of interesting because he also sent me the difference between where he was living in Bucaramanga versus where he's living now. Mike, how you doing, Mike? I asked him for his cost of living because that's pretty good sampling. He's living in the south part of Armenia in a traditional but nice little area. And so we'll compare those two. Cliff, 60 days till back home in Colombia. I miss you, buddy. Get your butt back here. You're one of the good people. Charles, buenas tardes. Not for me. From New York City, just back. Okay. Abel. Good morning. Buenos dias from Pereira. We got the best tasting coffee. I'm struggling with this idea of the best coffee, to be honest with you. I have my favorite. Everybody has different tastes. And I can say I can't remember getting a bad cup of coffee here in Colombia. But I can't distinguish. Okay, that purple coffee, San Humberto, that won last year international best coffee in the world in a blind taste test. And they've won, they win practically every year high level awards for various things. But this is like the biggie. So I buy it and I make up a cup. I did it in a mocha pot to begin with. So I try it and it's like, yeah, it's good. But what makes it better than like the coffee I drink or the other coffees? I can't tell. I couldn't pick this out as being the best coffee because it's just like, to me, it's just like another great coffee. And then I try it in espresso. I got a little machine. I try it that way. And I think, well, maybe that'll be a difference. No. Then I try it my traditional way with some milk and a touch of chocolate. And no, I don't get it. So I'm going to investigate that. We're gonna do a cupping with my favorite coffee, that coffee, and another particularly special coffee, and we're gonna do kind of a blind cupping. And I talked to this cafe that we visited this last Wednesday about them basically administering it. I'll pay them. I'll bring the coffees, but they'll do the pours and all of that stuff. So if you live here and you're interested in joining in on that, please contact me. I need to do it within the next couple of weeks. And maybe I'll learn something. Also, there's a little restaurant almost next door called Sublime. And I did a walking video a few weeks back, and I stopped and mentioned it and took a shot of it. Well, I went there and had a lunch the other day. A fascinating story. I'm going to do a standalone video on that particular restaurant because of the story, how it got its name Sublime, who's there, what's the whole point. There's a very interesting story behind it. But this next month, they're going to have some expert come in and do a presentation on quality coffees. And so I'm in. I'm going to go. I'm going to do a video. I'm going to see what I can learn from it. I learned a lot. I mentioned this before. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like James Hoffman, the coffee expert, and 1 being somebody who can't tell one from the next. I'm maybe a 5, maybe a 6 on a good day, because I've been studying and trying to learn the last few years pretty intensely. But there's so much I don't get. And I want to get it. I want to understand it. So anyway, let me go back here. Abel, happy Easter. Eagle, good morning from Dallas, Texas. Michael Meyer, good morning and happy Easter. Eagle, blessed Easter. Thanks a lot, Tay. You're welcome. Charles, Dios te bendiga siempre. Sebastian, how you doing? Hello from Lake Michigan. How's it going? One last thing on my coffee rant. I'm going to show a little clip that I made back in Ecuador. And the coffee in Ecuador pretty much sucks. And there's a whole range of reasons why. And that's another video I'm going to make, but I'm going to put that on the coffee channel. Of why it sucks. Why should it be so bad when you're right next door to Colombia that has some of the best coffee in the world? I think the best coffee in the world. Well, in this clip, I want you to notice the coffee beans. And yes, everything about this clip is wrong. From the grinder, I get it. But, I was making do, didn't know, a whole bunch of things factor in. But I want you to notice the coffee beans. Let me show you this clip.
You could.
Okay. I was very proud of that shot with the hot water pouring into the French press with the GoPro down there. I was very proud of that. Very artistic. But if you notice those coffee beans, they are black. And that's what they do in Ecuador because there's such a problem with the beans themselves, how they pick them and how they dry them. It's so backwards that they over roast. They burn the beans so you can't tell. All you taste is the burnt. So I wanted to point that out. You'll never see beans like that here. And what killed me was, even though I'm not an expert, I'll tell you that over and over, but I can appreciate decent coffee. And when I was there, that was all I could get. And so I drank it, but I knew that there was an issue with it. But people there will rave about it being the best coffee in the world. how would you even know? All you can taste is burned. You know, I mean, picture a chicken on the grill that, you know, flamed up and it's nothing but black crusty all over the place. You know, it's like, what do you taste? You taste burn. That's all you taste. Anyway, I'm off topic. Carlos Gonzalez, good morning from Coral Springs, Florida. How you doing? Oh, and French press is the only way I make coffee. It's definitely a way. I don't think there is a best way. I like, if it's a good coffee, if it's percolator, if it's pour over, if it's mocha pot, which for a long time I kind of had a preference for. French press is an awesome way to do it. I like the espresso because the grind is different in all of these. And the finest grind is in the espresso. And so you get a different extraction than you do in the others. They're all a little different, but they're all great ways to do coffee. Thanks Starbucks for the popularity of burnt coffee. Amen. Amen. That's the thing in the United States, you know, the idea that dark roast is the way to go, and it's a way to go. And if you like it, that's fine. That's great. You got a whole country of Italy that, you know, likes it that way. But you're tasting the roast, you're not really tasting the coffee. And that was something I figured out rather quickly coming from Ecuador to here, when I'm drinking the coffee and I'm getting these flavors that I never could taste in Ecuador. And the kind of coffee I was drinking in the US, a dark roast, I didn't there. I come here and all of a sudden I'm experiencing something much different. And then the more I look into it and try different ones, the more it's like one tastes different than the other. My problem is, how do you determine what makes one the best? Anybody have any ideas? Okay, let's get on to some news. I get off on these rants, and I don't know how many people say, will you just shut up and get on with it? Oh, I didn't mention the Colombian peso and the temperature and all of that. So let me back up. Colombian peso, 38.44, kind of a low. And the outside, it's been a cool, drizzly morning. And you can see there the road's wet. Just kind of drizzly. A lot of fog or low-hanging cloud. And temperatures right now, it's about 73 degrees. We're going to have a high of about 76 and a low of about 65. Kind of a beautiful day, actually. You'd say, well, there's no sunshine or whatever. But the temperature is just, it's so awesome. I kind of love it. I wouldn't want it like this every day, but, you know, last week we had some really hot days, and yeah, I'll take this. I'll take this any day. Okay, let's get on to some news. Nobody asked yet. Nobody asked Dancer. See, I've been watching that all day long. Okay, the news. I tell you all the time about how much they love pets here, particularly dogs. Dogs are a local favorite. Well, recently, I'd say in the last month, there were two articles in the news about dogs that were abused. And they weren't necessarily ultra horrific stories, because there's some pretty bad stuff that goes on in the US. You'd see it all the time. Here it's a rarity, and the cases, I would say, they were, one was maybe even borderline abuse. I mean, but you know, it was not good. They were not treating their dogs like family members, that's for certain. And there's been kind of a fair amount of outrage. There's been a protest and government officials here locally looking into, well, it says safeguarding your rights, new channel. Safeguarding your rights is in the dog's rights, safeguarding their rights. New channels to report cases of animal abuse in Armenia. They want to make it even easier to come forward and report a neighbor that's maybe leaving their dog out all night or not feeding it or whatever. Because here that's high level abuse. They truly feel as a society here that if you have a pet dog, it is a member of your family and you have to treat it that way. Now, some people will say that's ridiculous, and some people will think that's awesome. Only country in the world that has legally made that the case. But it is how it is. And I, for one, I love dogs, and I really appreciate the care that I see in dogs every day. When I was in Manizales, it was really noticeable on Sundays because I lived right next to one of the roads that they would close off, and people would go out and they would, rollerblade or skateboard or bicycle, but you'd see families out walking and a million dogs out on leashes. And it was such a contrast being in Ecuador, where they liked them as puppies, and then they kind of kicked them to the street as soon as they got bigger and started eating a lot. So you had endless street dogs. You just don't see it here. You will occasionally see a street dog, but a street dog here is most often misunderstood as being a street dog, when actually perhaps it's the person in the tienda that works there and they live nearby and they just bring their dog there, and the dog will go out and walk around a little bit, come back and lay at the owner's feet. You will see that. They're not on a leash, but the owner's fine with it. And, strange thing here, we were talking about this just a few days ago. I was with a few other people. As you notice, the dogs here are very calm. In the U.S. or other places that I've lived, you're kind of wary of a new dog because it's just as apt to, take your arm off as not. They're very defensive, and if you walk up to somebody who's got a dog, 9 times out of 10, it's going to, be careful, approach it. Here, you can walk up to a dog and pet a dog, and they're like, oh, thank you. It's you don't see dogs that are going to bite you. There might be a dog bite occasionally here and there. I mean, dogs are going to be dogs, but they're so calm as compared to what you would be used to. I've gotten used to it, but it's pretty cool to see. One of those things, you come here, spend any time, you will notice it. Okay, next news item, as I beat everything to death. Okay, this was something else that I was discussing recently. Abel, let's see. Thank you for your videos. Really enjoyed. You're not leaving, are you? But thank you. I appreciate the comment. Recently, I was discussing with several people about criminals moving into Condillo. And I've done a couple news things over the last few months where twice that they tried to come in and set up shop, and in both cases they were shut down within a few days, caught, arrested, and thrown in jail, because people just aren't having it. And where this occurs is Montenegro. And the reason Montenegro, a little town not far from Armenia, the reason Montenegro is, it's for a long time, there's been more than its share of crime in that little city. And the reason they focus on it is because there's already a certain percentage that have kind of a criminal mentality. So it's easier to recruit, or so they thought. But here, this past week, criminal group El Despacho dismantled dedicated to extortion in Montenegro. As you see, they turn their back to the camera. That's the way they do the photos. And extortion is one of the favored crimes in Colombia. And, they're always looking out for it. Right now in Ecuador, it is rampant. It's become almost an unmanageable problem. It has become so rampant. People here are very sensitive to it because they went through decades of these kinds of issues. So when they see it, they really, they're willing to report it. So that's a good thing. You don't want to see that they keep trying, but I can appreciate that every time they try that they get shut down. At some point, maybe they're going to kind of give up on moving into Condillo. But it's also, I definitely appreciate the fact that public just aren't sitting back. They've got an eye out for this kind of stuff. They don't want it. Okay, Turtle, I forgot to mention, with the hundreds and hundreds of faithfuls trudging uphill to the huge cross, there were hundreds and hundreds of dogs, as you mentioned. No dog fights. Everyone was cool. Yeah, and you lived in Manizales, so Manizales may be one of the most dog-loving cities in Armenia. I don't know how to actually quantify that. It's just an impression I've always had. There's something about Manizales that seems like they go over the top. Maybe it's all little outfits they put their dogs in. I don't know. I don't know. Turtle, you've been around different places. What do you think? Am I crazy as Bucaramanga or Socorro? I think Manizales is kind of top of the heap when it comes to pampering their dogs. Okay, next article. This is quite the talk among locals here. Woman in apparent state of drunkenness, that's her on the left, causes tragedy. 1 dead, 3 injured. This is over on 19. And I saw the video clip. I was shown the video clip, but I couldn't find it to show you. But it's a 4-lane road with a median, and you see her blasting through an intersection, cuts across the road into the other ongoing 2 lanes, and just flies down until she's out of shot of the camera. She nailed several motorcycles, hit a car. One of them flipped up on its side. It says 1 dead. They didn't identify it. It was somebody on a motorcycle, completely unprotected. And they walked up to her, and this picture is from a video, which I also saw that clip. They walked up, and she looked like she's there, but they were trying to talk to her, and she wasn't responding. She just had that look on her face. And next thing you know, she's power windows, putting her window up, and drives away. But she didn't get very far. But it's all the talk. This is probably, I would guess it's never happened. And so, of course, people are really going to talk about it. Yeah, she's kind of enemy number 1 right now. Okay, next one. Ongoing story about the volcano. Authorities monitor activity. Not much different than last week. They're still hearing rock movements. They can hear stuff going on. But we're in yellow. We've been in yellow for a long time. So it's, on the face of it, this doesn't really amount to much. It's more of a status quo update. But there's another story. Did the construction of the La Linea tunnel destabilize the volcano? And this is coming up because there is a 6-minute video out on X or Twitter When are we going to quit saying X or Twitter and just say X? That's put together by a French firm, but by a Colombian. And it's very well done. And it's narrated with a bunch of pictures and little videos in the background talking about this volcano. And it's making the claim that the tunneling and a gold mine that was discovered, which is the second largest gold mine for deposits in the world, saying that between these two things, it's destabilized the volcano. So I did a little digging on it, and I think they're full of crap. And they say some other things in this video, like they say the second most dangerous volcano in the entire world. So I looked, and there are some listings for that sort of thing. This volcano doesn't even make that list. Yellowstone is, I think, number 6 on the list. It's very dangerous. The top couple could lead to a world extinction, but it's the video is very interesting and it's well done, but it doesn't take much to scratch the surface and find that they either blowing things out of proportion or they're stating things that there's no basis for. Where they dug the tunnel versus where the volcano is, I'm just not getting it. The tunnels are through, solid granite. It just, none of it makes sense. Now, the gold mine actually brought up something kind of interesting. When this gold mine was discovered, long before they were, well, I can't say long before they're digging the tunnel, because they started this tunnel over 100 years ago. It's still not quite finished, but most of it's done. But along the way, this gold mine was discovered some time ago. And there was a conversation within Colombia about, should we mine this? And they actually took a vote throughout Colombia. And it was determined, no, we won't mine this because of the effect it would have on the general environment, the water tables, all of that. We're going to leave that gold mine alone, which is pretty striking because, you got countries like China that will come in and pay you a ton of money to take over that kind of operation and things like that. But they said no. So that gold mine sits there, the second largest deposits in the world, but they'd rather have good water. So, Victor in Manizales, we need to get together this time around. We'll set a date. Just back from 4 months in the Philippines. I need to ask you, I've been seeing some things pop up on my Facebook that I've never seen before, and it says that it's you, and I didn't know if it was you or not, but it looked like, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about it. But we need to set a date, and it could be maybe around the 3rd week of April. Turtle, as our friend Andrew stated in the interview, the way a population treats its dogs is a good indication of the advancements of its culture. I can't disagree with that. It may not be 100% all the time, but I think it's a pretty damn good indicator. Okay, so we covered the volcano. 2 more stories, and we're actually going to get to the cost of living. I mean, you probably thought it was never coming, right? Okay, I try to get through these a little quicker. Coffee farms seeking attraction from new generations. The problem here in Quindío, this is what they're talking about, Quindío. These are small family farms that are generational farms. And this generation of younger people are moving away from the farm. It doesn't provide the kind of income that they would like to see. They want to go out and, seek their fame and fortune. And it's causing a real problem because of these farms, they shut down, and then the big corporations come and swoop up and, buy them up. And, we don't want Condillo to be that kind of commercial thing. That's fine. But most of Colombia has that. And Condillo has all of these unique, amazing places. So it'd be nice to kind of keep that. The reason this makes a headline is the local government here in Condillo, they're trying to scrounge up funds to put together programs talking to the farmers. They're trying to figure out ways to entice their family members to stay on the farm. It's something like only 2% of if you take the population of the farms, it's overwhelmingly 50 and above. And of the up to 20, 22-year-old, it's only 2% of the count of the people living on farms that are working the farms. In other words, that should be a number as higher than, the older people, but it's barely any. So it's a pretty critical issue. And then another thing that comes up, and this is something that they're also trying to support. Most of the good coffee farms here already do this, but they're really trying to get coffee farms to go back to growing things the way it was a couple hundred years ago. Like these good farms that are making these great coffees, they don't just grow coffee. Intertwined in them, there'll be coca, bananas or plantain. The banana trees growing among the coffee. What happens is coffee is best if it gets a little shade. And so if you've got plantain trees, there's shade. There's also chemicals that come off of these plants that help prevent diseases and insects on the coffee plants. So they all kind of work together. And some of the best coffees here, including my favorite coffee, from those farms, you can also buy their chocolates. You almost don't want to call it chocolate. You can call it maybe cacao or cocoa. There'll be bars, but they're like 90%, 80%. I mean, there's like little to no sugar content. It's almost like baker's chocolate, but the quality of it's unlike baker's chocolate, which is like you just want to puke if you taste it. This is actually a high quality product, and it's very interesting. And you can find these like in the cafe of my favorite coffee. It's not too far from me. They actually sell right there bars of their kind of chocolate, and other small farms will also do that. So it's pretty cool. Sounds like chocolate. The price has gone crazy. BBC says $10,000 a ton. More M&Ms. Well, okay. Don't know. It's all right. Finally, we're going to get to the cost of living. So let's start off with Turtle's list. So what he's got here: living expenses 2024, rent $1,100,000, and he's turned this into dollars. I appreciate that. $282 a month. He's got that 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Some of you have seen it. It's very big. It's gorgeous. It's in a great building with amenities. Still warm. Gas, about 20,000 pesos, $5. Water, 64,000. That's $16. Electric, 90. Yours are so much lower than mine. Your utilities are like half of what mine are. But electric, 96,000. 96,000. $25. Wi-Fi, 80,000. I'm only 70,000. $20. And I've got, my speed is 300. But I checked it the other day. It was actually 400. I don't know what that's about. Cell, 73 or 74,000. That seems kind of high. You must have some extra plan, but $19. Hell, my cell is $30, $35, or 35,000. So it's about half. Health, 162,000, $42. Transportation, 200,000, $51. That seems high. What if you could send a note? Mine doesn't come anywhere near that. And I'm kind of curious, what's running that up? Are you doing anything out of the ordinary? Food, $1,500,384. I'm not surprised. Food has gotten quite expensive here. Miscellaneous, $1,256,000. That's total 4,300,000, which is $1,100 US. And I also asked him to compare it to when he was living in Bucaramanga. A difference in rent is $1,135,000, plus the difference in utilities totals at almost $200,000 for a total. Oh, so your utilities in Bucaramanga are like mine here, for a total savings of $1,334,000 a month, which is what, 400 some dollars, something like that. Somebody do the math on that. I'm from Bangladesh, bro. I'm watching you. Yeah, well, we're watching you too. Okay. So now let's take a look at Mike, who's living in the south part of Armenia. You have to do your own conversions, but rent $650,000. That's half. And he's got this is one floor of a house, so 3-bedroom, pretty good size. Utilities, $150,000. Phone, internet, $110,000. EPS, which is his health insurance, $290,000. He has a different kind of plan, if anybody's wondering why that's so much. Food, $600,000. Quite low, but doesn't include restaurant. So total $1,800,000. So that's like really cheap. Of course, it doesn't include transport, doesn't include restaurant, doesn't include any entertainment, etc. So those are just the bare bones. Turtle, taxis every week plus trips to San Gil, one trip. Okay, gotcha. I missed, where does Turtle live? He lives in Socorro. Like Jarvis, I have 2 floors, 1,600 square feet. Yeah, I didn't know if you'd got that second floor. I didn't know what was going on, but thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. So you got the equivalent of what? 4 or 5 bedrooms and 2 kitchens. Okay, there's that. Now let me do some slides here, and I'll see if I can pause as I have something to say about it. How we doing? We're doing good on time. All right, so here's just some everyday things. So let's take a look. So I don't know how well you can make, whoops. This is supposed to be paused. It's not pausing. Let me, hold on. Bear with me. Let me see if I can make this happen. All right, let's try it again. All right. This is TV. So we've got here Samsung television, 58-inch, UHD 4K smart TV. Just kind of these days your average run-of-the-mill. And I see that my logo is blocking it, but it's 1 million. Well, we'll say 1,800,000. So that's $466. Samsung TV 65-inch. Same type of configuration, 2,400,000 or $621. Now let's go to the next. Okay, we've got front loading washing machine and dryer. Now here, these are expensive, but they're washing machines and dryers. So you put your clothes in, it does everything. When you pull it out, it's ready to put away. They're pretty awesome. They work great. And LG and Samsung are the best of them. They're quite expensive. This is $4,500,000 or $1,166, and one that's 4 pound. Let's see, 1, 2, yeah, about 4 pounds smaller is $1,117. All right, let's get on to the next thing. Okay, I chose, there's lots of refrigerators much, much cheaper, but I chose a double wide LG brand. So you want a pricier product. And this is 3 million, let's say 700,000 or $956. So this is kind of high end. You can go a little bit higher. You can get outside water. You can get a computer screen and stuff like that. It'll tack on a couple $100 more. I have no idea what prices in the US are anymore. But you probably will know. Okay, now I've got some food products. Here is a 6-pack of whole milk, and it comes to $8.75 for the equivalent of 2 gallons. I mean, it's just like a few grams over 2 gallons. Is that good or bad? I mean, that's $4 and something a gallon. How much is milk in the US? It seems like all these things have really shot up this past year. This was so much less money. I'm kind of curious, what is it in the US? Here is the milk that I get. This is skim milk, and it amounts to over again. No, it's what is it? 1.2, 1.3 liters, $1.47. Okay, here's my favorite bag of rice. This is a pound rice, or 500 grams, about a pound of rice. It's 57 cents. This was about 30 cents a year ago. You'll see basic things here are pretty cheap. Okay, eggs. I've been complaining a lot about eggs. This is a 30 tray. There's 30 eggs here. Single A, so that's pretty big. $3.72. I think I did a dozen. Yeah, here we go. A dozen. This is a brand that I get. Dozen eggs, $2.13. You can get these delivered from the farm for considerably less money. I don't know why I do it. Maybe because maybe I'm not home a lot, and are they going to come when I'm not here? I don't know. When you live alone, you have to think about those things. All right, let me look at the, keep this on pause. Let's see where the comments are. All right, jumping on me. Message retracted. Message retracted. I was just getting ready to click on there. In Texas, gallon of milk is about $4, so about the same. Milk in Georgia is $2.58 to $4.78 a gallon, depending on brand. Yeah. So what used to be half or less of U.S. price, apparently some of these prices are are getting up to what it costs in the US. Gallon of milk, $3 to $5, depending on where you live. Yeah, no wonder we're crying about it down here. You know, it would be like that milk to you went up to $8 a gallon. That would be the equivalent of how it's affecting us here. Okay, let's get on to the next. See if we can find some good news here. Okay, banana. Per banana, 11 cents. Avocado. These are the big avocados. Like, we also have the Hass avocados. I actually prefer these, but the Hass are good. Hass avocado is about half the size of these. These are much more economical. But that avocado is $1.21. And during the peso high, when it was up to 5,000, and before COVID, this avocado was the equivalent of 60 cents. Yeah, so we've been kind of going through it here. Potatoes, I set this up as individual, so they're 20 cents each. These are just your basic white potatoes. For you drinkers, bottle of Chivas. This is a liter bottle. So that's your typical size, $36. I'm guessing that might be a good price, but I don't know. I don't really know. What's next? Okay, this is what you make arepas out of, white corn flour, and this is 1,000 grams. So it's about 2 pounds, 96 cents. So you can see why this is a very popular thing. There's certain foods here that are the basics of Colombian life, because even with inflation, before inflation, these have always been dirt cheap as compared to everything else. I didn't do beans on here, but beans would be in that category. Okay. Burger, ground beef. This is a really good tasting ground beef too. It comes in a big package that's the equivalent of 2 pounds. So it's $2.48 a pound. I'm curious if one of you can post that up. I'm curious to know if that's comparable or where that stands. I go through a fair amount of ground beef. Now here is Angus patties pre-made, 1.6 pounds for $9. I'm guessing that's probably pretty expensive. I don't really buy this. It seems like an awful lot for a hamburger. Plus that one I just showed you is really delicious. Inflation, Armenia, Colombia is 4%. Well, that could be true or false. That as compared to what? Are you saying in March? Are you saying this year? Are you saying, it really depends. I would say in general that's an untrue statement, because in this past year, most things have doubled. Abel, rent here in Manizales is very expensive. I'm paying 3 million pesos for a condominium, 2 floors. I'm moving to Pareto where it's cheaper. I can rent a house for 2 million pesos or less. Well, real estate, it all depends on where it is, what building it's in, what barrio it's in. You're saying your condo's 2 floors, two stories. Those pesos that's big. That's a lot. And that would be expensive most places. So is that true? They're rejecting 1,300 Social Security income per month retirement? No, it's not true. That's absolutely false. beware of charlatans that will blow things out of proportion to make them look better as they fleece you from your money. Not mentioning anybody in particular, I'm just saying, just beware. Pond here is 250. Wow. Inflation in Armenia is 4%. I mentioned that. 2024, not true. I don't know where you're getting that from, but it's absolutely not true. I live here. I wouldn't even notice that. And I'm telling you, ask anybody who's living here in this chat, Mike, Turtle, do you think so far this year, the three months, inflation has been only 4%? Rent alone has skyrocketed this year. Tommy Adams, $5 to $6 ground beef. Okay. So we're about half that. Unless you do the Angus, and then we're up in that price area. Okay. Here we got, what are these, pork chops? $3.47 for about a pound. These are shanks, ossobuco. They call them pork elbows. That's how the translation went. That's about $1.39. This is a bargain because depending on how you cook it, this is some of the most delicious meat there is. Let's see, Mike, maybe 4% inflation per month accumulated. Yeah, January in particular, there was a huge jump in a number of things because they're established every year. So, if you were talking about March, I could believe that, like Mike's saying. But we had a big jump in things in January, more in February, well, much less. But the point is, when you have inflation, you're still having inflation, even if that inflation is low. People say, well, it's dropped. Well, not really, because it's all cumulative. So if you had 10% in January, 10% in February, and then 4% in March, you've got 24% inflation. The time frame matters, but I get you, because you have to watch this. I notice in the US it's played with too, but here's no different. When you get information on things like inflation, you have to be very careful of the context that they're using, and it kind of depends on who's putting that out. If in politics, especially, if they're putting it out and they want it to look like a rosy picture, you can position those numbers to look like it's so much better. So yeah, it's all context. Robert, supposed to be 5% inflation in Cali. No way. No, there's no way. Cali used to be really cheap, and I was just there, and I couldn't believe how prices have increased since I was there last. That was a couple years ago. Eagle, I trust you. You're more honest. How much costs retirement visa for a lawyer? Don't use a lawyer. Lawyers rarely do these. Get yourself a visa agent. I recommend one. I don't get any kickbacks or anything. It's just that she's always done a great job. But and people in here will testify to that. But it doesn't have to be her. Just avoid lawyers, because lawyers tend to, this is something I got to do videos on, what do I hate in Colombia? And professionals is something that I hate, because it's so difficult to find a good lawyer or a good accountant that don't blow things out of proportion to justify charging you more than they should. it happens a lot where visa agents, they're doing these things all day long. They just charge you a set fee and they just crank it through like it was an assembly line, which is a good thing because they know what they're doing. It's much more efficient than a lawyer who's trying to make a score because he may not see another one for 3 more months. So just be careful of that. If you're interested in the one I have, shoot me off an email. But you can find any. Just look for an agent versus a lawyer. It's called a penthouse. A penthouse, yeah. Yeah, so that $3 million for a penthouse, we have a friend, William Hutch, not the one mentioned here, that he lives in a penthouse, and that thing, it's like Richie Rich would live in it. This thing is gorgeous, and last I knew, it's somewhere around 7 or 8 million pesos a month. So if you're in a penthouse for 3 million, of course, you got to compare them, you know. I just got the information about inflation from IA. And what's IA? Todd Monroe, thank you very much. No, happy Easter. Thank you, I appreciate it. Turtle, I moved to Socorro from Bucaramanga because the cost of living is headed to the moon. As a single guy, I spend 2 million pesos on food and household goods, $500. Ouch. Please, my email. Okay, let me see if I can do this. Go back. Cliff, Cali rent is double in Strata 5 compared to Armenia. I'm paying 2.2 million now in Cali compared to 1.1 million for the same square footage. Yeah, again, it depends on where. I got the email up on the screen. Yeah, there's so much that comes into play. But Cali used to be considerably cheaper, except in certain neighborhoods. There, you'll find the high end much more high end. Here in Armenia, our high end doesn't get as high as the big cities, but some are comparable. Cali used to be cheaper. Let's see. Thank you. The updates here in Colombia, here in Manizales, everything is so expensive. Yeah, it's nationwide, but some are worse than others. Okay, Armenia used to be one of the cheapest cities in Colombia, and we can't say that anymore. All right, so ribs, St. Louis style ribs, $2.82 a pound. Oh, was that it? I thought there was some other stuff on there. Apparently not. All right, let's cleanse our palate here. Just makes everything better, doesn't it? We can talk about the worst things. All right, now I'm going to do a little bit of summary, and we're already at the hour mark because I ramble on, but there's just a few things I want to say about it. Okay, first of all, it's been a dramatic increase. And another thing to factor in is we have a value-added tax. We call it EVA, IVA, but it's VAT, value-added tax, and it's 19%. It's been 19% for a long time. You go, whoa, oh my God, that's ridiculous. Well, it's not on certain items, but it's built into the price so that it's invisible. You don't really see it. And before inflation, you would look at prices and it was like you're paying 25% of what was in the United States. Uh, so it's hard to complain. Well, now, we're half or matching on some basic things. So that's a dramatic increase. But what happens is 19%, it's a percentage. So as the item goes up, so goes the actual dollar amount you're paying on tax in that thing. So it's kind of a hidden tax. It's there. You can't really deny it, and it certainly has its effect. Now, a lot of what you do is actually controlled by your decisions. So if you take Turtle, for example, he was in Bucaramanga and he looked down the road and he goes, the way these prices are going up, if it continues, I'm going to back myself into a corner. So he was kind of living on the high hog, which you could do when things are relatively stable. But when you look down the road, if we continue with inflation even half of what it is, there will come to a point where I'm going to start to struggle. And God forbid if the peso goes down even more, so you kind of get caught in that thing. So rather than put himself into a corner, he's planning ahead. So he started looking around. Where can I live where it will be cheaper? Now he's moved into a place that's nicer than where he was for half of the rent. And along with that, all his other costs are down. So you can see he's saving, what was it, 400 some dollars a month he's saving. So that buys him a lot of time if inflation keeps going or peso keeps coming down, which I really don't believe it will. But it's pretty smart. I was going to do the very same thing, and then I found myself trapped here for another year. So I'm going to be overpaying on this place for another year. Again, keep learning my lessons the hard way. But then I'll be able to do something else. And then you compare it to Mike here by living in the South and choosing a nice barrio to live in. He's got himself 1,600 square feet, 2 floors of a house, and he's paying peanuts. What's your rent there? $150 a month, something like that. By staying away from where the upper middle class live. Now, I like living in the North because so much of the things that I do are here, and I would have to transport back and forth. But what's happening is it's getting to the point where transportation is still one of the best things, cost-effective things you could do. So it's getting more attractive to live in a place like where Mike is and pay more in transportation to go where it is you want to go than to pay the rent. It wasn't like that. It's becoming like that. So there are some barrios in the South that people may want to start considering, even though you're not going to be able to walk out your door and walk to certain, like a mall or something like that. But if you're making significant savings, if you're saving 20-30% of your budget by doing that, then that's something to consider, because transportation certainly won't eat that up. So, there are ways to negotiate what's happening financially so that you mitigate the effects of it. What else we have? Transport. Yeah, I noticed transport in general is crazy cheap. I'll take there's a couple days a week I'll take a taxi. And because I live at the very north, I live on the border of Armenia, as far north as you can go. I'm the last building in Armenia as you head towards Pareda. So everything is kind of a distance in a taxi. But in a week, going a couple times, I spend 30 to 40,000 pesos in a taxi. What is that? $10? $10, $12 to run quite a distance, in a week. So taxi's a way to go. Bus, dirt cheap. Um, I have an issue with buses, but it's kind of a personal thing. But you could do buses. That's another way. It's very inexpensive. There's a reason motorcycles are so popular here. I don't recommend it in Armenia or most of the cities here because they're flat out dangerous because all the other motorcycles drive like lunatics and they create accidents. And I don't want to be caught in that. But motorcycles are so cheap. You can buy reasonable motorcycle transportation for 2 million pesos up to like a really nice smaller motor like a 250cc up to maybe 10 million pesos. So it's all relatively inexpensive, and that would be brand new. So you can do that. Everything's cheaper. There's no tolls. For example, if you've got a little motorcycle and you want to go to Pareda, you don't have to pay all of those tolls. Of course, gasoline is going to be so much cheaper. And motorcycles are good here for the poor trying to get to, or anybody trying to save money, trying to get to work every day, because while those buses are cheap, it adds up. And you got some walking to do, so that's time where you could just jump on your motorcycle, run to work back and forth every day, not wait for anything, and actually save money. So that's potentially a way to do it. Now, a motorcycle could be used somewhat effectively living in a place like where I live or in the north, where if you're going to be running to the mall or if you're going to be running to a supermarket, there are routes that you could take that won't be that crazy traffic with a motorcycle. So once you know your way around, you could navigate to make that useful to run certain errands. Parking is less of an issue. So transportation is definitely very cheap. But when it comes to the cost of living, it really is all about how you want to live and the choices that you make. And if you, let's say your retirement is $1,500 a month, you don't want to come here and calculate out everything to be somewhere close to $1,500 a month, because you don't know how changes are going to come. 3 years ago, we never expected that we would get hit with this inflation because we had never had that kind of inflation before. So this has been a bit of a shock compressed over a short period of time. We kind of knew it was coming, but when you're actually feeling it and having to pay out of pocket, it makes a difference. And there's other things. I mentioned the peso when it was at its high of 5,000. Well, on my budget, which is under $1,600 a month, on my budget, when it was up to 5,000 pesos and before inflation, I had a windfall profit of over $500 a month. I had $500 a month to spend more than I had the year before that. Of course, then as the peso kind of drops back down, that windfall goes away. And then as inflation comes in, now it starts eating into your basics. I've always talked about, budgeting for the peso. I always budget, what if it falls as low as 2,800? What I never thought about was the extent of inflation like we've been having. So if those two things happen at the same time, it just kind of compounds the problem. But there are moves you can make, and Turtle, kind of leads the way in that thinking. So that's what I got to say about cost of living. Cost of living can be what you want it to be. You have control over it, but it takes a lot of thought and it takes a fair amount of knowledge. Francisco, buenos dias from Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. Happy Easter to you too. Mr. Ben Link, buen dia, how you doing? His dudeness abides, haven't seen that in a while. What is the clause that agencies put in rental contracts that lock you in for an extra year? It's a bit complicated, and I don't really want to go into it today. I'll do either a separate video or I'll set aside time in a coffee time coming up to explain it. I can incorporate that with some other things. It's a good question. Anonymous. I don't know who this anonymous is. I don't know, but I thank you. Thank you very much. Abel, you wake me up with that music. I need a cup of coffee. Like you enjoy when I'm learning lots of comments, lots of your comments. Okay. Thank you. Rob Bennett, lawyers and insurance companies, the worst everywhere. Yeah, another thing on the lawyers is, at least in the US, you can find ratings that are relatively useful. You don't have it here. You don't have the same system, and you don't have a guide to tell you, hey, if you go there, it's going to be a problem. You don't know. The only thing you can go off of is, hey, do you know a good lawyer? And that's what I have to do. When I was looking for an accountant, I actually had to find one that's like 3 hours away from here because I couldn't get verifiable information on an accountant I could rely on here. And all the ones like in Medellin, it's like, oh my God, they're the things they're charging, like to file for a license for a corporation in Colombia, for example. There's one accountant, it's 1 million pesos total. In Medellin, it's anywhere from 10 to 50 million pesos for the exact same thing. How on earth do you justify that? And are they even going to be any good? You know, it's a real issue. So, okay. What else we got here? Happy Easter. Thank you. Taxis here in Manizales, very cheap. Maximum is 12,000 pesos. Well, there is no maximum, about 20 miles. Hope I'm close to that. I think you're off on that. Manizales, their minimum is actually considerably higher because of the hills that they have to go up and down. But then their taxi rate is pretty much equivalent. William, one thing that hasn't been discussed is the level of security and housing options. I evaluated my living arrangements with this in mind, don't paying extra for the protection. This is not the William that some of you are thinking of, but it's a good point. Security is easy here because it's something that's always been available, but knowing what that security is and how they operate it is certainly a factor. I don't really think much about it anymore because I've lived here long enough to know there's certain areas where it just is, it's a non-factor, but it doesn't matter. You still want to make sure that there's some security in place because that non-factor today, just like inflation, could be something different tomorrow. Miriam, hi Lauren, guess what? We will be by Armenia tomorrow afternoon. What is the address for this coming Wednesday coffee meeting? Richard and I would love to meet you soon. Definitely a good place to meet. We're going to be at the same place, which will be the, what is it, what is it? It's on the Facebook page, Adventure in Gran Colombia. It's actually pinned at the top. So take a look at the Vistago Cafe. Now, the interesting thing is that was a restaurant, but the overall compound, the overall complex is actually a huge church, beautiful place. And in the front, they have this cafe, and it's called Casa del Padre, and it's on Bolivar. So it's Cafe Vistago. Awesome cafe. I did it, some clips of it on the coffee channel when we did the 3 cafes, one right after another. And that place came, we were all there were 3 of us, and we were very impressed with the place. And so we had our meeting there this week. It was nice enough. We'll probably stay there for a couple weeks and then move on to another one. We'll just keep hitting different ones. Charles, retirement in 15 months. We'll have Social Security, $3,000 a month. Marriage or retirement visa, which is better? Marriage visa is better than a retirement visa. Definitely. You kind of jump the turnstile with that one. But either way, that's crazy money. Here, even now with everything that's going on, that's crazy money. I can't imagine if I was living with double the money I got. Ron to the Z. Thank you. Oh my God. Didn't even notice that one. Thank you very much. Thanks for all you do for us. I thank you for being here, but I really appreciate those comments because those of you watch long term know that from time to time it starts to feel overwhelming, and sometimes you can feel like, what's the point? You maybe okay, I don't want to. It's not Cry Me a River, but sometimes you just kind of feel like it's unappreciated. So what's the point of doing it? Why put all that effort in? I could be doing something just totally for myself, totally fun. But I really enjoy doing this. And so when I get comments like that, it just kind of refuels how I feel about it. And I'm really fired up right now about the coffee thing. I'm frustrated because for the last couple of weeks I'm stalled. I haven't even put any kind of videos up, and I put a couple of videos up that were kind of pointless, almost filler, like these old black and white coffee commercials. I thought they were kind of cute. Sadly, I remember all of them. But that's not the point of that channel. It's just I wanted to put something up, show some kind of activity, because I'm stalled out a little bit right now, and I'm working through. Then we get past these holidays. You know, maybe I can get this thing moving again. Area, how much around is the price of a cab from Pineda to Armenia? Why would you do that? Don't do that. Take a bus. It's go to the terminal. If you're coming from the airport, take a taxi from the airport to the bus terminal. When you get to the bus terminal, take either Trans-Armenia or Metro. Trans-Armenia or Metro. These are the smaller buses. They're more like extended vans. Very comfortable chairs. They got Wi-Fi. It's got AC. It's a good way to go. It's dirt cheap. I think it's like $2 instead of the $100 and some dollars you're going to pay in a taxi. It's a really good way to travel, actually, between Armenia and Pineda. So yeah, and then you can take a taxi from the terminal here in Armenia to wherever you're going to go. So don't do a taxi from Pineda to Armenia. I know it's tempting. It sounds like it might be a good idea. It's really not. It's a waste of money, and it really won't get you here. Hardly. Maybe you save yourself 5 minutes. I mean, these buses move along pretty good. Arequipa, Peru, very cheap, great weather. I'm a Peru hater. You know, it's just like wherever you go, it smells like piss. I'm gonna make people really mad at me, but yeah, when did that ever stop me? Peru is a dirty country. They're dirty habits. It's like Cali on steroids. The garbage, there's no consideration. You talk about bad treatment for animals, for dogs. I mean, it's packs of starving dogs. And I don't mean like nice area of Lima, but I'm talking about Peru in general. There's a completely different mentality there that's very similar to Ecuador, but even worse. It's like Ecuador was 20 years ago. I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. And I've got an interesting video. I think there's several parts to it of a couple that spent a year traveling through Central America and South America to find their forever home. And they came through Colombia, met up in Ecuador. They went to Peru, and I remember kind of laughing because they sent me an email after a few days in Peru. We think we found it. This is so amazing. We think we found it. And I'm thinking, that's not going to last. And sure enough, a week later, this place is so filthy. Thank you. Thank you for reaffirming what, you know, it's like, okay. Yeah, I'm just not a fan. I mean, you can go and you can see where the Incas were, and you can go to Lima and get some of the best restaurants in the world. I mean, there's a couple restaurants there that are ranked 1, 2, or 3 in the entire world. So I mean, all of that's cool, but Peru in general, it's just not for me. I don't mind things being behind the times or like that. I mean, I prefer modern, but I don't really mind if it's if you know, Wi-Fi is still on a DSL or something like that. But when things are just filthy, when animals are mistreated or starved, and when just the kind of thing that I'm not comfortable in that environment. I just don't like it. And the nice thing is we have choices. Miriam, thank you. Turtle. If you have to take a private car, consider InDriver, not as cheap as a bus, but much more reasonable than taking a cab. True. And I actually, Mike knows a driver. I know a couple drivers that people have told me about, but take the bus. Just take the bus. If you got big suitcases, they got room in the back for it. If you got, let's say there's 2 of you and 4 big suitcases, they have room for it. Worst case is maybe they put you on the next one. They run every 10 or 15 minutes. You will thank me later. However, when you get on, you will generally have your choice of a seat. Try to sit ahead of the rear wheels. So don't sit in the back row or the row next to the back row. Try to sit close to the front as you can get, or as close to that as possible. Because, well, just, I explain another time. Because this is kind of dragging on. Abel, thank you for helping the Americans. You're a special person and honest. Thank you. Yeah, well, somebody's got to. And I did everything alone, myself, but I'm used to it. You know, I've traveled when I lived in Japan. When I went to Ecuador. I've got an Alexa in the background picked up on me saying Japan for some reason. But they're listening to everything you say. But I'm used to being in places I don't speak the language and fending for myself. You get comfortable with it. But most people don't have that background. And it can be really daunting. As a matter of fact, a place that once they get there, get settled and start to understand, there's a lot of people that will come and visit and never reach that point because they get scared off simply because they're not aware of things to do. Like everywhere they turn, they're afraid somebody's going to rob them or they're going to get ripped off. Is this guy being honest? I don't understand what they just said. Am I missing something that's critical? You know, you're kind of in panic mode all of the time, and I see it. And when people hire me to do that, part of what happens is they've got somebody that we can just kind of chill, relax, take our time, and explain through those things that you would you would experience that would frighten you. And it's a common thing. You know, somebody else brought up, a turtle, as a matter of fact, brought up something he thought was interesting. I don't know that there's truth to it, but there may be. That single guys coming here tend to last for a period of time. Come here, stay. Where couples come here and they might last 3 to 5 years. I don't know if that's true or not, but I will say this, that there are a couple people that I run into as couples where the wives missed their social life back in the US, or missed being closer to their grandkids, things like that, where single men are more apt to deal with it, maybe more used to it. A lot of us have had military service where, you know, you learn separation and how to handle it. So there may not be some truth to that, kind of an interesting concept. But all I could say is, you know, give it a chance or sit up front with the driver. Well, there's 2 of them, but that's true. Sitting up front, when you get on these little buses, if it's available, if somebody hasn't stepped in front of you, you offer like 1,000 or 2,000 pesos extra, and you get the seat next to the driver, or next to the other door, the passenger door. And some of them will have 2 seats there. And that's pretty good. That's the best place to ride, actually. I'll do that only if I'm going to be doing video, because I can take a shot out the windshield that I can't anywhere else on the bus. Cliff, cost of living in Colombia can be minimized if you think in pesos versus dollars. Learn to think like Colombian. That's very true. It takes a good few years to have perspective on what pesos are. And a lot of people will embarrass themselves because I've talked about this before, you know, well, they'll argue like it's life and death over an amount that if they just kind of step back, they'd see they were arguing over a nickel. You know, it's you know, you just lose perspective, or you never get that perspective until a certain point. When you stop thinking in terms of what it is in dollars, and you're only thinking of it as what it is in pesos, that's when you've got perspective. I quit, and I have to translate to dollars on videos from time to time, but I quit thinking that way 3-4 years ago. That's why I used to be able to rattle off what it would be in dollars, where now it's like, hey, could somebody look that up? Because I'm so far away from thinking that way, it just doesn't really register with me. I have to stop and think about it. Okay, we have gone an hour and a half today. Thank you all for contributions. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you for being here. I've got some really nice comments today. That's heartening. It makes me feel good. Makes me want to do more. And I got more coming. Please take a look at the coffee channel. Leave comments on there. I don't ask here for comments and subscribing and all that stuff, because on this channel, it makes no difference. On the coffee channel, it does make a difference, or it will make a difference. It's still not monetized, but I don't want it to be blocked. This channel is blocked off from the general public. You have to know this channel exists. I don't want that to happen to the coffee channel. And the way to overcome that is to do the comments and the subscribing. I don't care on this channel because it's not monetized anyway. But that one, I need it to be a broader audience, because it's going to be a broader, well, I'll shed light on the why coming up. Go out and dancer.
A Truco el bravo le dice, lo dejaron tirado, como efecto de los golpes, camina cachondeado. Antes rotaba de guapo, pero ahora mismo está recogiendo galletazos por todita la ciudad y camina de lado. Vamos que me cachondean. Como
Wow.